Hello, dear friends. Welcome back to the channel, or welcome to the channel if this is your first time here. I am Paul. I'm a professional game master based out of Denver, Colorado. I do a lot of tabletop role-playing game content as well as video game content here on YouTube. So thank you so much for joining me. We're doing another episode of Pop Culture Character Sheets today. And as you can see by the picture I have pulled up, we are doing one for Etienne Navarre from the movie Ladyhawke. He is a captain of the guard, a former captain of the guard who has been exiled from his post and his kingdom and put under a curse by an evil bishop. So we will get into a little bit more of that as we go. But if you have not seen the film Ladyhawke, I highly, highly recommend it. It's a classic of 1980s fantasy cinema. It stars Rutger Hauer, as you see here on the screen. It also stars Michelle Pfeiffer and Matthew Broderick. So really big names in this movie, and yet very little. Talked about or really mentioned when it comes to films that any of these people have done. So it is actually kind of a gem, a little known gem that people should be paying more attention to. It is a wonderful, wonderful film. So please, please check it out. But we will be making one. He is, I believe, this film is meant to be set in France. They never explicitly say it. They only say the name of the city, Aquila, where some of that action and plot takes place. So, but the names of the characters are all kind of French in nature. So Etienne Navarre is the captain of the guard, and then his lover Isabeau de Beaumont, I think is her full name, played by Michelle Pfeiffer, and then Philippe Gaston is the character played by Matthew Broderick. So it's very much a kind of based in France kind of story, but his name is Etienne Navarre. So I've been noticing in some of my older videos that some of my typing is a little bit loud, and I apologize for that. I am trying to limit my clacky clacky as much as I can, but nevertheless, it's still going to happen a little bit. So I think we will make Etienne Navarre a fighter ranger combination, and then he is a human. Oh, my space bar is getting stuck there. That's no good. Maybe it just means it's time to look into getting a different keyboard. Maybe that's what my technology is trying to tell me. So we are making all of these characters a level 5 because we want a lot of their powers and abilities to be really blossomed and available for any players that might want to, pick up these character sheets and play them. I do occasionally run multiverse style one-shots where I make these character sheets available for people so they can just kind of grab and play. And so these are available for my players when they play a game with me in that style. So we rolled Navarre at 49 hit points. So at level 5, that's a pretty decent chunk of hit points. And as a fighter ranger mix, I only gave him one level of ranger mixed with 4 levels of fighter. So he actually will have a mix of hit dice. So um, I had a comment on one of my videos that perhaps I should go into a little bit more detail on what some of these things mean. So I will try to be as brief as possible, but still kind of explain some of these things. So with hit dice, one of the big things that happens with hit dice is when you rest, you roll either some or all of your hit points, depending on how long your hit dice, I should say, depending on how long your rest is, in order to regain any lost hit points. So resting is designed specifically to be, well, not specifically, it's designed for a lot of things, but resting in D&D will give you hit points back uh, with your hit dice just by resting and kind of taking a breather, as it were. Many times in an adventure, you can find like a little side room where you can sit and rest, and you can tell your game master, we're taking a short rest. And if you are doing that, that means you are allowed to roll a certain number of your hit dice in order to regain some of any hit points that you might have lost. So that is what hit dice are for. So as I said, very briefly touching on a lot of these things, but nevertheless, I'll try to go into, like I said, some more detail. Medium size, medium. All humans count as medium unless you're playing as a child, or if a NPC is a child, then they might count as small. But for the most part, pretty much every grown adult human adventurer or NPC is going to be the size medium. Now, if you go into smaller sizes, that's where you get into certain sizes like, or certain other D&D races like gnomes or halflings would be considered a small size. Now, then you also have even smaller than that, considered tiny. Tiny would be like a fairy or something like that. So sizes vary greatly, and then you have large or colossal, depending on if you're fighting, a giant or a dragon or something like that. So sizes do vary greatly in D&D and matter depending on what kind of action is happening and such as well. So humans though, size medium. We'll get into some of his other things, as we go, but we can also start with a speed of 30. So that means he can move 30 feet per round of combat that he has. So one of the things that you can do in combat for your turn, you can move, you can take an action, and then you have a reaction or sometimes free actions, things like that. But movement means, as far as the imperial system, right? I think is the name of it. With feet, so 30 feet would be different if it was meters, but for American D&D, it's 30 is your speed there, and then we'll start plugging in his stats. So at level 5, each level gives you different, abilities, different things that you can add or change as far as your statistics go. One thing that continues to grow as D&D characters level up and get stronger is their proficiency bonus. Now that just reflects things that they are good at, and they can add this bonus to those things. So if, for instance, you see any of these skills down the left-hand side of the page here that would be checked, those get a proficiency bonus added to that skill check. So if as a GM, as a game master, if I were to ask for so we can actually just start. We'll just start with Constitution. So I rolled Navarre with an 8, 2 12s, a 14, a 16, and an 18. So widespread there, which was actually really, really ended up fitting his character very well. Now Navarre has been through a lot, so I gave him that 18 in Constitution, and he gets a +4. So if the game master asks for any sort of Constitution saving throw, he automatically gets a +4, but then I also made him proficient in that, which means he actually gets a +7. So if he ends up encountering maybe some food that's been poisoned or a potion that's poisoned, or if he is hit by a attack that would require him to make a Constitution saving throw with the dice, he would automatically get +7 to whatever he rolls. So it's a really, really big bonus when you have that high of a score. So coming back up to the top, though, he is also a mighty warrior, and so I gave him the 16 in strength, and then a 14 in dexterity. So all those things, like I said before, he just gets those modifiers there added to whatever dice he rolls in pertaining to particular strength or dexterous kind of skill checks that might be required. But I did also give him a saving throw and proficiency in in athletics and in strength there. So that means he actually does get a +6 in each of those because of that proficiency bonus. I should have typed that in earlier. I apologize. Is +3. So +3 to everything that he gets checked off there. So if we come down here, though, none of these got checked. I decided that he is The +2 I think reflects his character pretty well. So we're gonna just give him +2s all the way down the board on dexterity. So he rolls anything that requires him to be stealthy or sneaky with his hands or particularly acrobatic. He would get a small bonus, but um, not anything that would be considered a proficiency bonus. So uh, intelligence, I gave him a 12 there, and then wisdom a 12 as well. So he gets +1 on both of those. And then getting into some of Navarre's story and background, I don't want to make too many spoilers. Some of this will actually, I'll say this up front. If you want to watch Ladyhawke and you want to have no spoilers whatsoever for the movie, just come back to this video at a later time once you've done that, because I will be spoiling the plot of the film in a lot of big ways, kind of starting now. So if you don't want any spoilers for the film Ladyhawke, it is close to 40 years old. So my apologies. You should have seen it by now. I'm gonna shake my finger at you. You should have seen Ladyhawke by now. But yes, if you have not seen it, you don't want any spoilers, just come back to this video later. So starting now, consider yourself spoiler warned. But moving forward, Captain Navarre and his lover Isabeau, played by Michelle Pfeiffer, are under a curse. And so I want that to be reflected in some of the things in his statistics as well. So he will get +1s for everything except Arcana and Nature. I wanted to give him a proficiency bonus in that. That's, oh, sorry, a +4. I'm not doing my math very well today. +4 and then a +1 for that. And then I also wanted to give him not just proficiency, but expertise in animal handling. So that means he gets his modifier and then double his proficiency score. So he's actually going to get +7 when it comes to animal handling. And then we'll just do +1s on insight, medicine, and perception. And then he is also a survivor as well. And so we'll do proficiency there. So then we come down to Captain Navarre's charisma. He is unfortunately pretty rough around the edges and is, once you get to know him, a really just amazing and wonderful, wonderful man with a good heart. But he is gruff and hard to get to know at first. So we are going to give him a -1, reflecting his score of 8 in charisma. So not a very charismatic person. I did give him expertise in intimidation because he was captain of the guard, and I felt like he should have uh, quite a good ability to intimidate others and get them to do, to follow his orders and obey him as the captain of the guard. If he's a ranking officer in any sort of military or guard, then he would have to be able to command his subordinates, right? So I reflected that through his intimidation score there. So if we continue moving down, we will give him training in everything. Navarre knows how to do everything. So whatever weapons, whatever armor, he is gonna have at least some ability to use them. So I gave him abilities in both martial and simple weapons. Martial weapons being the ones that are more complex, used by professional soldiers or mercenaries, soldiers of fortune. Simple weapons being those that could be picked up by a townsperson or a farmer or someone like that. So any of those would be usable by Navarre. I did not give him any proficiency in any tools. I don't feel that he would necessarily be great with tools, so I did not give him any of those. But we can start pasting in some of his traits and feats and features, etc., etc. So I will do that. We'll start over in species traits. So as a human, humans always are considered resourceful, quote unquote, in D&D rules. So they gain a heroic inspiration whenever they finish a long rest. So pretty much every time they wake up in the morning, they have heroic inspiration. They're just ready to go. They're resourceful. And so heroic inspiration means they have advantage on a skill check or a roll that would require a d20 roll, anything that would require them to roll a d20. They can give themselves advantage. They could save that heroic inspiration. It's noted just above with a little, or just to the left there with a little checkbox saying heroic inspiration. They can keep track of that. Once it's used up, it's used up. So it's a one-time only thing unless the GM decides to give inspiration for something else, which they are absolutely able to do, particularly when players opt for something really cool or really fun, really kind of pursuing, thinking outside the box, something like that, or really, really, really digging into some really good role play and really feeling into the character and playing the character well, then the GM will often reward the player with inspiration. So inspiration is just reflected there on the character sheet like that. Second wind is another one that is going to be added in because as a fighter, he's going to need to be able to take a moment and just give himself a little bit of reprieve and rest and healing. So second wind is reflected as a bonus action. He can regain a certain number of hit points. And so that's reflected in a 1d, in this case in a 1d10 plus 3. Now sometimes people homebrew different rules, and so you will see different rules in the rule book versus what you might see here versus what you might see at a different gaming table. So just be aware that some of these are not official D&D rules. I've tried to stick to official rules in a lot of ways, but there are a lot of times that I'm just trying to make it feel as close to the character and give them abilities that reflect that, but also stick to the feel of D&D itself. So hopefully I have done that, as you will see here in the next little section. So um, again, spoilers for Ladyhawke, but the premise of the movie is that this bishop, this evil bishop, is jealous of the love between Navarre and Isabeau, and so he basically he really just like essentially sells his soul to the devil in order to conjure up a curse, and he curses the two of them so that during the day Navarre is this knight, and he has with him this hawk, and the hawk is Isabeau. During the night, they switch. Isabeau becomes a woman. She changes from a hawk into a woman, and Navarre changes from a man into a wolf. And so that is the crux of the plot of Ladyhawke. And so that is going to be reflected here with these. I want to, did I not fit? Oh, okay, I just didn't paste the last line. So, okay, during the day, you have the following abilities and features, including all the weapons listed above, which we will get to in just a second, as well as everything in the traits and feats section, which is down below, which we just did. So at sunset, though, you will lose control of your human form and take control of Isabeau d'Anjou. See right. So that will get pasted in here in just a second. So as a gameplay mechanic, that will also reflect the curse that Navarre and Isabeau are under. At night, as the game progresses at night, then the player will then take control of Isabeau and have a wolf at her side instead. During the day, then the player would control Navarre and have a hawk at his side. So it's a kind of a back and forth kind of role that's reflected in this way. I was tempted almost to put that up in the in the character like name, as well as some of the other things, but I also don't want things to get too crowded, and then especially with statistics, things like that, there isn't really room in the sheet to do this statistic and this statistic and have two by two, and I didn't want to do a second one. So what you'll see is I do reflect a few of those statistic changes for Isabeau versus Navarre. And I we kind of leave it up to players. So like, if there's any problems, if you have any confusion, if this is kind of too strange of a character for you to play, then like just consult with your GM and make sure that you kind of understand how this is going to work for you. But this is meant to be just kind of a reflection and celebration of these characters from this wonderful story. So um, anyway, during the day, Navarre will be a knight. He will have control, not control. He will be accompanied by Ladyhawke, who can give bonus to perception checks. So if the party is scouting around, if the player wants to see what's going on, they can kind of send Ladyhawke up into the sky to look around and add a massive bonus to a perception check to kind of see what's going on in the world. And also, while the hawk is airborne, no one can ambush you. She will alert you to any nearby danger as well. So it gives you immunity to any to being ambushed by enemies, which could be pretty powerful mechanic if you feel like you're in danger. If you're walking into a canyon where there's shadows on both sides and you think you might be ambushed, send the hawk up, and she will alert you instantly if there's nearby danger. Goliath is Navarre's loyal black war stallion. He's a good boy, but he if the player is mounted on Goliath, they get a bonus to certain things during combat. And then Goliath can also rear up and just kind of like lash out with his front hooves, causing a certain amount of bludgeoning damage on a successful hit against your foes. So that's just kind of those bonuses and little extra additions that Navarre will have, and then we're going to post in the other side here and see that during the night, then the player will have the following abilities and features included: everything in the traits and feats. You notice I did not mention the weapons listed above because and you'll see it mentioned down below. She can only use knives and daggers, not swords or ranged weapons. You never see in the movie. Isabeau is the daughter of a count, I think, is how she's described in the film. And so, as a noble, as a person of kind of noble birth, she wouldn't necessarily have training in like the use of a broadsword or a big crossbow, which are a couple of the things that Navarre has, but she would be skilled in using a knife, a dagger, things like that. In fact, at one point in the movie, you see her chasing down on foot a rabbit at night in order to catch and hunt for dinner. So, um, skilled with a knife when she needs to be. Now, the first paragraph though, you'll notice that you suffer a penalty to both strength and constitution, which means she's not as hardy as Navarre is. She's not as strong as Navarre is, but she gets a bonus to dexterity, a +4 bonus to dexterity, which puts her at an 18 for dexterity. So she would get an additional +2 in her modifier. +4 modifier for all of her dexterity stuff is huge. And then I didn't give her acrobatics, sleight of hand necessarily, anything like that. So, but I did want to reflect that, she would be faster and quicker than Navarre is. And then also, a +10 bonus to charisma, giving her an 18 in charisma instead of that 8. So then she would also have a +4 in charisma instead of the -1. So it's a huge shift. And that's another thing that you see in the movie is this reflection of, there are people that are just simply in awe of her. I mean, Michelle Pfeiffer has always been, it still is to this day, a strikingly beautiful woman. And in the movie, Isabeau is as well, and she kind of is just by her very presence, kind of enchanting to character played by Matthew Broderick. He kind of stammers and stumbles over his words. Ends up befriending her and developing this really lovely platonic relationship with everyone, and it's really good stuff. But yeah, so she will have a massive boost to her charisma, just the ability to kind of be charming to kind of the NPCs or the people that she might encounter. So that's kind of it for those particular things. Now, one thing that I've been kind of doing, and we will eventually get to a more magic-based character with these pop culture character sheets. So don't fret. don't fret. The magic based characters are coming, but for right now, I have still kind of only been doing these kind of purely physical characters. So this one also is not going to have a spellcasting modifier, not going to have a spell attack bonus. So those kinds of things, because neither one of them are magical beings. They are humans, straightforward. So that also is reflected. They just are not. They're not magical in that way. So. Uh, I've been going back and forth on some of these pop culture character sheets, whether or not to reflect the actual languages that the characters speak, or if I want to go more D&D style and say common or druidic or something like that. However, here's the thing. So when I do the multiverse adventures, it's the same reason I don't enter in coins or currency down below. You might see that some of these characters will have as just a line in their inventory a certain amount of money, but it's not counted as just like gold coins, silver coins, whatever. I want it to be American dollars or florins that they use in The Princess Bride, or things like that. So that when they are having a multiverse adventure, one of the aspects of surviving is going to have to be how do we deal with this currency? So, as I've mentioned before in some of these past episodes, if you get transported into, say, 1980s New York to fight the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, but you are a knight under a curse, you're not going to be able to go and buy rations at the local bodega with the silver or gold coins from your native kingdom of France or wherever it is that Navarre is from. So it's like that's another issue I want my characters to have to deal with. Same thing with language, I think I'll reflect the language of the art form that it was originally published in, and then I'll reflect also the story and make it accurate to the story as well. So here's where that comes in. So I think English, because the movie was made and produced and performed in English, but then I also, sorry, not France, French. So because the movie, to the best of my knowledge anyway, again, they don't outright state it, but I'm pretty sure that it takes place in France. So I'm going to give them English and French to speak. So um, then we have a pretty wide range of things for Captain Navarre's inventory. So we will copy and paste those in here. So we'll start at the bottom, actually, since that's where my cursor is. He has a torch, he has some throwing knives, tinderbox, ropes, rations. Those are the things that are pretty normal and typical for an adventure in a D&D adventure, right? But then he also has a massive greatsword that he is specifically seeking to use to kill the bishop that put him and Isabeau under this curse. So he carries this great sword. You can see it in the picture just next to me, this massive thing that he keeps strapped to the side of his horse. He carries with him into battle. He is using that as like a point of honor and pride to fulfill a quest, and his quest is to kill the Bishop of Aquila. So he has this sword with him. The Navarre family greatsword, I included that. Isabeau's dress, there's some very tender scenes where Navarre will pull out the dress as the sun is setting, as he's about to turn into a wolf, as Isabeau is about to turn into a woman. He pulls out Isabeau's dress so that she will have it when she transforms and becomes a human, so she can have some modesty. But he also, is just touching it and kind of smelling it and remembering her and this like love that they had. It's a very touching and sad and poignant moment. Hawk feathers and hood are another thing. I'm not going to spoil the ending of the movie, but the hawk feathers and hood are iconic for the story of Ladyhawke. Double crossbow. Double crossbow. One of the first scenes you see Navarre fight in, he has a double crossbow and he pulls it out. He fires one and then he just kind of turns and fires at another soldier, just bang bang. And it's a very iconic kind of thing. And I think at one point he even just uses it to, whack somebody. So I wanted him to have that, some bolts for it as well. He has his clothes, a cloak, a black cloak for him, his plate mail, and his helmet, all of those things, and then just a shorter broadsword. It's not the full great sword; it's a one-handed broadsword with a shorter blade. So he has all of those things available to him. I actually did not give him money. When he's traveling in the movie, he actually has to rely on Philippe Gaston, played by Matthew Broderick, to supply money to stay at an inn. And so he seems, from what I can tell, he seems to not be traveling with any money. So Navarre is a man on a quest, but not a wealthy man. So yeah. Then we get into his basic weapon and kind of damage numbers. So we put in his family. Well, sorry, I should say family greatsword right there, and then that is going to have an attack bonus, his proficiency, plus his strength. So he has his proficiency bonus because he's good at it, but then he is using his strength to attack with a great sword. So both of those get added together to make a +6. So great swords in D&D count for a D10, and then that proficiency bonus gets added in as his damage numbers as well. So that is also going to be listed here as two-handed, which means that he cannot wield it one-handed. It's a pretty intensely big sword, and he wields the broadsword one-handed. He does not wield the great sword one-handed. That is very much a two-handed weapon. He actually does throw it at one point. He throws it. Gaston, the mouse, played by Broderick, is threatening to leave the partnership. He hires Philippe, the mouse, he was a pickpocket who escaped from the jails of Aquila, and he hires him to help him get back in so that he can assassinate the bishop. And so he hires Philippe. Philippe is threatening to leave at one point, and he just throws the sword, and it lands inches from Broderick's face. And I have yet to be able to find any clips as to how they made that scene, because it just like comes out of nowhere, land like through the air, and boom. And it may be split screen or it may be like strange footage, but he turns and like because it's shaking in the trunk, and he turns and kind of puts his hand on it to rest it. So I don't think it's trick photography in that way. Again, if you have seen Ladyhawke and you know how they made that part of the film, please let me know because I would love to find out. That's always kind of mystified me. Uh, Now we also have his broadsword, which is also going to get a +6. Again, he's using his strength, and he is good at this with this sword. So broadswords are a little bit less powerful, obviously, than a huge great sword. So we will do that. However, it is versatile. So in D&D, versatile means that he can use it either one-handed or two-handed, which means that if he uses it two-handed, he can change his damage dice up to 1d8 instead of 1d6 +6. So it allows for some changing in the tactics and combat and things like that. So double crossbow, he's going to get his proficiency because he's been using the crossbow for a long time, but he's using his dexterity. Ranged weapons use dexterity as their bonus there. So he is actually going to get a +5 instead of a +6. And then on a successful hit, it will do 1d6 +5 piercing damage. Piercing, slashing, these are all different kinds of damage that are reflected by what type of weapon is being used, what type of magic spell is being used, everything like that. And then certain creatures may have resistance to certain kinds of damage. So if a dragon or some other thing comes along with truly thick skin, or even some magical creatures have a resistance to slashing damage, and so they would receive half damage from all slashing attacks. But they might not be resistant to piercing damage, and so you fire a bunch of arrows at them, and they wouldn't have those same resistances that they would to slashing damage. So it's not a bad thing to be aware of. What kind of damage you're doing, and then how it might affect the target that you're intending to hit with that. So. A few things for the crossbow here. It is two-handed. Obviously, you can't fire this. It is a big crossbow, so it is a two-handed thing, and he has to fire it kind of like boom, boom, like that. So it's two-handed, and then he has to reload after 2 shots, which means he can take a shot, and then he can take another shot before he has to reload. Reloading would require a full action on his turn in combat. So those kinds of things really do affect, how you fight, what you fight with, and when you use certain things in combat. So it is ranged. The ideal range here is between 30 and 120 feet. Anything inside of that would be considered close range, and he might get a disadvantage at. And then anything outside of that would be considered far away, and would also get a disadvantage with that. So yeah, you want to kind of use this particularly at a 30 to 120 foot range. Now, I will say though, as a GM, if a player were to pull out this crossbow in a particularly good scene and want to use it, say, inside a single room in I mean, in the movie even, he uses it in a roadside inn or tavern, right? So they're just kind of out in the common area. It's not 30 feet away, it's less than that. And so I think given the circumstances, I would be willing to be flexible on things like this to allow for a more impactful moment to use that crossbow depending what the player wanted to do. So that's another thing as GMs you want to be aware of. If something is kind of following that rule of cool, go for it because that's going to really get your players hyped and pumped, and they always going to enjoy that moment of being able to just like try something new. It was crazy, but it worked. And sometimes it won't work. Sometimes, the dice still say that it didn't work, and that is going to happen from time to time. So that's just something you're going to have to deal with. I'm plugging in a few other numbers here. He gets a +2 to his initiative because he has a +2 bonus to his dexterity. And then he has a 11 for his passive perception, which is his baseline of 10, and then a +1 from his wisdom. He gets that 11 for passive perception. Passive perception means if your party is walking around and there are clues or things about the environment that a perception check of just 11 would show, then those are the things that Navarre is going to notice. And then anything above that, the GM is probably going to ask you for a perception check, right? So if, again, coming back to that canyon where there might be an ambush, that's where you want to like take advantage. Use your hawk, or use just a moment to try a perception check. Even though you only do have that +1, it's still something. So you can still do certain things as a player, even when I mean, 11 perception is pretty, I think, average, right? It really doesn't reflect a whole lot of like really on high alert, high senses kinds of things. I think in Navarre's case, that's probably where the hawk comes in. So I think this is pretty much everything that I had for Navarre. Um, as you can probably tell by my rambling nature and my excitement for this character sheet, I enjoyed doing this a lot. This was really, really fun. This is one of my favorite movies of all time. And again, if you have not seen this movie, I beg you, please, please see it. I think there are a few places where you can see it for free. If not, I think you can buy it here on YouTube for pretty cheap. It's just a few bucks. Please, please watch it. It's so worth it. It is highly cheesy too. It was made in the 80s, and so the music, the soundtrack especially, I think is what gets a lot of people. The music can be pretty cheesy. Just bear with it because trust me, by the time you get to those end credits, you are going to be smiling from ear to ear. I promise you. So please watch Ladyhawke. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Pop Culture Character Sheets. Thank you so much for being here. Give me a like, comment, and subscribe to help the YouTube algorithm. Give me a comment or a suggestion on any other pop culture characters that you would like to see me do. I really enjoy this kind of thing, and I would love to keep doing them. I got some pretty positive response on my first one with when I did Inigo Montoya from Princess Bride, and so I hope that people are enjoying these and continue to watch them. So if you've got any ideas or anything that you think I should do, please let me know. I also, like I said at the beginning of the video, I am a professional game master. So if you would like to play D&D or any other tabletop games with me, I have an online profile. I'll post the link to that down below. I also have a business here in the Denver area called Dinners and Dragons. I am a professionally trained chef, and so I will go to my client's house, prepare a medieval or fantasy themed dinner for them, and then host and run a D&D one shot for them at their house after dinner. So if you are in the Denver area and that sounds like something that you would be interested in, please let me know. Again, I will put all the links and stuff for that down below. Please stay tuned to the channel. I will be posting more videos on my world setting, my Kickstarter project that I'm kind of putting together. I have not made it live yet, but I will be, and so I'm putting all of those kinds of things together. So stay tuned for that. And yes, thank you so much for being here. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and we will see you next time. All right, take care.